Okay, so what I really want to know today is whose dumb fucking idea it was to record at this hour of the morning. Because I've only had one cup of coffee, and in my time, it's, 11 minus 5 is 6 o'clock? It's literally 6 a.m. my time. So...
Is this a legitimate time that you're still stuck on from your stupid trip, or are you just making this up because you feel like bitching about the time that you made us get up and do this show at because you couldn't make a few cups of coffee before you started bitching to me about it?
I did make 2 cups. I'm working on the second one. Just started, so I did. So shut up, Tim. Second of all, what do you mean by legitimate time? It's a 5-hour time difference, so yes, it's 6 a.m. for me.
Okay.
Oh, gosh.
I haven't had any coffee yet.
Yeah,
I was really about to go make some when you called me.
Welcome to the show, guys. This is You, Me, and BTC, episode number 107. I am Daniel Brown, and I'm here with...
Tim Baker.
And John Stuart.
So this will be... I think it's pretty darn likely that this will be another unedited show because I am running out of time again. I just got back from vacation yesterday, like we said, but the day after tomorrow, I have to drive across the country to Arizona. So actually, the day after tomorrow and the day after that, I'll be driving for 2 days straight. That'll be lots of fun. But another raw edition of the You, Me, and BTC podcast, and depending on how it goes, it might be worth keeping it like this because it is a big time saver, but I don't know, we'll see. We don't have, none of the three of us have real studios, don't have soundproof or anything, and you never know what kind of roommates, with air quotes, I have to say with air quotes because of the, it's audio, what kind of roommates Tim's going to have running around in his house, so.
What do you mean you have to put it in quotations because of the audio?
He has to say that he's...
I have to say air quotes.
I thought you said because... Okay, I got it.
Because of the audio.
Wow.
And I'm going to restrain myself from explaining that joke, so.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. You normally restrain yourself here.
Hey, before we get... Well, first of all, what I want to talk about today is kind of just a random string of Liberty thoughts that I've had over the past, I'd say a month or so. I've just been thinking about a bunch of random things, and they're sort of connected, but they're just kind of questions I've had about Liberty ideas, and I want to see where Tim and John stand on this stuff. And I really haven't told them any of this until just today, so we'll get there. It's more kind of raw stuff, right? We'll just get their first impressions. No time to hash it out and work up a 15-point essay or anything. So we're going to get to that in a minute or two. I want to give a quick shout out to Jeremy Bennett. His Twitter handle is at Fozzimoto, Fozzimoto. He's been tweeting us a few times over the past few weeks because he's been listening to every single show that we've ever done, binge listening, which kind of baffles me. That's got to be what? I mean, 106 regular episodes, 2/3 of an hour each, roughly, maybe, or 3/4. So what's that, like 70 hours just with regular episodes, and then there's like... 2-hour YMB live shows, a couple interviews out there. So that's got to be at least 3 days straight of listening. So at least 72 hours, probably 80 or so. That's crazy. So Jeremy Bennett at Fozzimoto, thanks a lot for getting through all that and somehow still enjoying it. And
not hating the sound of all of our voices by the end of it.
No, he wouldn't hate mine or John's. He would just hate yours. But
well,
I guess
at least
that's why
make an impression.
That's why we keep you quiet as much as possible so that it doesn't affect them too much. So our listeners. Anyway, yeah, seriously, thanks. And I'm assuming you're listening now because you said I think a week or so ago, you're like, well, now I have to wait for every episode, but I'm still loving it. And hey, we still love having you around, so thanks a lot. Okay, so I guess that all I can do now is try to explain this stuff that I've been thinking through and see where it takes us. It's not going to be a ton of Bitcoin stuff. Well, actually, I don't know, because we've said that before, that, oh, this isn't really Bitcoin. And then I think in the past we usually still end up using Bitcoin as an analogy or an... Oh, wow.
Yeah, did you
Great
want
job.
that on there?
That's it. That's raw, guys. Unless I cut it out, then you're going to wonder forever and ever what just happened. Where was I? Oh, yeah, we've said before that this isn't going to be Bitcoin related, and then we still end up connecting it somehow as an example or an analogy or something. So we'll see how it goes. But I guess, I mean, I don't really even know where to start, so I'll just pick something and start going, and if I can bring in the other random thoughts, I will. If I have to make a just completely awkward transition, I will. But let's see, one of the first things I guess I could ask is this. Let's say, what are your guys' thoughts about property rights? If someone comes onto your property and you don't want them there, are there any limits to from a liberty perspective, are there any limits to what you can do to get them off? I mean, is it theoretically, I know that we'd probably say this is dumb. Practically, this is pointless to just kill them if they're like barely toe over the line. But theoretically, I mean, it's your property. So, and actually this might come in pretty strongly with like religious people who like believe that their land is sacred or something. And then maybe they really would get upset if somebody was just barely toeing the line. Is it theoretically okay to kill them, or where do we draw the lines in terms of property rights and trespassing, stuff like that? Go for it.
Theoretically, it's hard to really make a backing up for this line, but or not a backing up, but a justification for it. I think theoretically, yeah, you can make the argument that someone comes onto your property, you can defend your property, and you could say that the person was going to mean you harm or something like that. Or, wow, I just kicked that. Or that you feel that they've threatened you like before, because it's like, it's different if someone is constantly doing something over and over again. At least it can be different. That's why all this is so touchy. That's why normally people just jump to having a government to decide any kind of interpersonal interactions between people, because it is somewhat difficult, but it's not, I don't believe it's impossible. But, yeah, I think theoretically, under some circumstances, you could kill someone for being on your property.
But I think that's part of my point in saying theoretically is I don't care about the circumstances.
All right, then theoretically, yes, you can shoot a fucking little girl on your property who just stepped onto there.
All right,
I think this is exactly
John.
what Cantwell got originally in trouble for, is because he was having an argument with everybody else in the wherever he is in not Connecticut, New Hampshire. Everyone else says, you can't say that. He's like, well, yeah, if a little girl, like technically, but
yeah. See, this kind of stuff has started to annoy me a lot lately, and this is kind of why I went off that time when we were talking about the censorship on Reddit.
It's because you don't believe in principles, John.
I don't think, actually, I'm about to say that you probably don't believe in principles.
That's actually true.
Anyways, like, I don't know if I explained myself totally well that time, so maybe this will be a second chance to redeem myself. But, like, I don't know, the basis that everybody tries to use for liberty is that it's like a matter of morality, and it's like the non-aggression principle and stuff like that. If you're, I don't know, if you're trying to sell your worldview to everybody else based on the fact that you think it's like a moral high ground, and then you're going to have theoretical discussions about killing people for walking onto your property and not consider the circumstances because
right.
It's just theoretical, I'm not interested in that. Like,
yeah.
I don't care if, like, you can come up with some, like, long-winded intellectual reason why it fits with your worldview or whatever. At that point, I don't care what your worldview is anymore. Like, I don't care what your justification is.
You don't care if your justification is for what? Because you just...
For killing somebody on your property without, talking about the circumstances. Or like coming up with these theoretical situations where you're going to kill somebody for walking onto your property. Like, why do you even need to...
Because that's just what people do. That's what every single argument ever does. You try to push it. Whenever you're trying to argue against it, you push it to its worst conclusion.
Yeah, I realize that. But what I'm saying is that people who support liberty are supposed to be doing it on a moral basis.
Not
so, like, why are...
necessarily.
Well, if you're not, then what's your basis for it?
I just like it when people leave me the fuck alone. It's better for me.
It's better for you, but then, like, why is anybody else going to agree with you?
Nobody else does agree with me. Everybody else thinks that they should just get shit for free. I mean, that's fine. I'm not really going to be able to change it.
No, but I mean, you're on a podcast. You're trying to convince other people to like believe these things. You're talking about it with other people. To say that it's just you thinking this and you don't think that it applies to anyone else, like, by believing it, you're applying it to the rest of humanity, I guess, because you're expecting them to live up to what you want them to do.
So, to be completely honest, John, that's almost exactly where I wanted to end up. Is a lot of what you just said, and so. We'll see if I can get there a little coherently, just with my other questions. But yeah, I really like the kind of things you've been saying, and we'll get there some more in a sec. But I think I'll bring up another kind of. It might be a little disconnected, but like I said, we'll see. Just another question. There's two examples I have here. One of them is from, I don't know, probably a year or so ago on Free Talk Live. Somebody called in, and I forget if it was their own situation or just something they heard about or a neighbor or something, but there was somebody who had a neighbor with a windmill, and the windmill wasn't generating power. It was just kind of a prop, a pretty thing to have in the yard or whatever. And they said that I think it was sound and light. They said it was really squeaky and annoying when the wind blew, and at certain times of the day it would reflect light pretty brightly into windows or whatever. And there's really not much to say other than it was annoying. It was a bother, it was loud, stuff like that. And then I actually just a few days ago, a friend of mine told me a story almost identical, and it didn't even have anything to do with liberty. They were just saying, oh, I have this neighbor and they have this windmill and it's really loud and annoying and stuff. And it was literally like the exact same story. And actually, I guess I have a third example, and this is actually from Hawaii. Well, actually, no, let's start there. Let's just start with that. Really simple. Let's just say, plain and simple, your neighbor is being really, really annoying. Not aggressive, really, but just plain annoying. How do you deal with something like that from a liberty perspective? What do you... I mean, I think on Free Talk Live, they basically said, well, you can talk to your neighbor, try to be polite about it. And I think I would agree with that, but let's say they don't listen to you, they don't agree. I don't know, do you move away? What do you guys think? How would you deal with just plain annoyingness?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know that liberty actually has an answer for this. I think in some ways this is almost something more where, like, if you're gonna approach it from like a liberty perspective, it's almost more like liberty tells you what not to do than tells you what to do. If that makes any sense. Yeah,
I guess maybe liberty says, well, just deal with it.
It means leave people alone. You don't have to respond to someone being annoying to you. That's up to you if you can find some way to make it work in your own moral compass. But yeah, it doesn't say what you have to do normally. There's nothing that says, well, you have to protect that person being oppressed, or you have to help anyone. It's just, you just don't go out and actively hurt somebody.
Yeah, actually, from a general perspective, I do like that, Tim. Like, you don't. I've always been. This is actually kind of ironic. I've always been annoyed when people get annoyed, like for dumb reasons. Like if someone is like, I used to, whenever we're driving in the car, I remember my dad would always freak out if there was something rattling in the car. Like if there was something in the back, like I remember we had styrofoam and it would like squeak, like when over bumps and stuff, or like keys jingling in the car or whatever. My dad couldn't stand that. Like he'd be like, "What's that noise? What can we fix it? Like what's going on?" And that kind of stuff would really bug me. And it's like, who cares? Like just ignore it, right? And
Why don't you just ignore your dad getting annoyed?
Daniel? Oh, I know. Well, actually, I think honestly, that's like I never like said that to him. I never was like, "Shut up, you're being stupid." I think I just thought like, really, who cares? But yeah. So for the most part, I like that, Tim. Just like it, you don't have to get upset about it. You don't have to act on it. Things like that. But actually, then I think I might be able to bring in my last example, and this was from Hawaii. We had a discussion about this while I was there, and actually this kind of stuff came up a lot because it is a really isolated place, and that brings up some special difficulties. Like they want to keep certain diseases out. I mean, for the plants and stuff, they won't let you bring fruits or vegetables in because it is a nice climate and everything for different plants or vegetables and fruits and stuff. And same thing with any kind of species. Like they have this ginger plant that is just taking over a ton of space and cutting out different species and stuff. And it's annoying. It's a hassle, and it hurts. In a certain way, it hurts people that might be able to profit if this plant wasn't there, right? And but the more specific example that we talked about was a dairy. There's this farm or whoever, this family, whatever, they want to build a dairy on one of the islands, and there's some pushback. I mean, some of the pushback is just kind of. I think they could be easily just wrong. Like there's some environmental stuff that they're concerned about, and some people are concerned about like the smell from the dairy because apparently the wind blows straight down to the beach or something. And to a certain extent, it's kind of the same thing. Well, like who cares? Just deal with it. But let's say, I mean, whether or not it's true in this specific instance, you have to imagine there are cases all the time where people really are legitimately, I don't know, let's say they're legitimately building a dairy 10 feet away from a hotel or something, right? And there's going to be all that smell or whatever. So, yeah, I mean, how do you deal with stuff? I mean, maybe we still don't have an answer, but let's say that somebody really did want to, use 1,000 acres of land to do something that's going to bug everyone around them. What do you guys think about dealing with that? Especially like, let's say that Hawaii was its own little state. So we can eliminate a bunch of the arguments about, the government, they just kill people, we can eliminate a lot of that. Let's say that Hawaii was a small community and everyone, it was slightly more legitimate governance as opposed to government, where people were just like, I think we should do this, and it was a little more fair and balanced and stuff. And maybe even there was no government. I mean, so then what do you do when somebody's trying to be annoying, or maybe it is legitimate that they're going to seriously harm the environment? I don't know. I mean, it's kind of the same question, so maybe we don't have much of an answer. But what do you guys think?
Well, yeah, I want to go back and explain, I guess, what I said a little bit earlier, because I didn't fully explain what I meant. When I was saying that liberty doesn't, like, as much tell you what to do, but tells you what not to do, I didn't mean that means that you don't do anything. I meant that, like, it's more that there's just ways of approaching it that you wouldn't, say, fit in with a liberty perspective. So, like, just to go back to the windmill for a second, like, and you don't, like, go over and hack up their windmill with an axe or something like that.
Right.
Or, like, blow it up or, like, kill your neighbor because their windmill's annoying you. Like, you can go over and talk to them and say, hey, like, do you really need that windmill? Because it's kind of annoying. Like, I don't know if it bothers you or if you, like, even notice it. But, like, is there anything you can do about that? Maybe put some WD-40 on it or something.
Right.
At the very least. I mean, that's what I meant, is that I think there's, like, if you're approaching from a liberty perspective, there's latitude, and it's more that, like, the edge cases are, like, defined, if that makes sense.
The edge cases are...
the extremes.
Yeah, the extremes. But the edge cases are where it gets, like, gray. Like, when it's just a windmill, then it's like gray area. Well, what do you do? I mean, but if it's more... Yeah. Okay, I know what you're saying.
Yeah, so in, like, the edge cases are the ones where it's more like, well, if somebody comes in and is, like, holding a knife to your wife's throat or something, can you kill them?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, you can probably do that. Like, that's probably not many people are going to argue with you. Well, and if they do, they'll at least understand
right.
the circumstances.
I know what you're saying. I think semantically I would call those pretty much extremes where, you know, obviously, like, yeah, sure, you can kill them, or yeah, sure, you can blow up. I mean, I guess in the windmill we said you can't. Yeah, that would be an extreme. Well, of course you can't blow up a windmill, but I would call those extremes. And then the edge cases, maybe I don't even know if this is right, but to me the edge cases would be like the kind of hypotheticals that people really have a tough time answering, like gray area. I remember I remember Adam Kokesh used to talk about hypotheticals all the time, and sometimes he would say, like, it's kind of a waste of time, like we have better things to argue about. But I mean, I remember one of his hypotheticals was something about, like, if you've been in the desert for a week and you really need water, and you see somebody with water, is it okay to just run up and take the water and swig it before explaining to them that you really need it? Or even if they won't give it to you, stuff like that. That would be more edge cases to me, where it's like, well, is it okay? Is it not okay? Or I don't know, actually, maybe it would be obviously okay to just take the water if you're about to die. I don't know.
Well, no one's going to be making that moral decision in that moment. Part of the problem with some of these questions is no one goes... Or they make the argument of someone stuck out in a snowstorm or something like that in the elements, and they break into a abandoned, or not even necessarily abandoned, but just someone's, like, their cabin, and they're going to die if they don't break it in. No one's making that moral decision out there, like,
right.
Fucking
Nobody
cold,
cares.
I don't want to break the non-aggression principle, though.
Yeah, that's a pretty good point. Yeah, no, in that situation, nobody's going to care. They're just going to do what they can to survive. So yeah, I like that. But I don't know. Any other thoughts on the dairy or just general things like that?
To get back to the actual question.
The dairy's a problem because of the smell or something, right?
Well, I mean, that's what they said. But I'm saying whether or not that's legitimate, let's say that it was legitimate. Let's say that they really did want to use a ton of land to do something that's going to bug everyone around them. What can you do? Yeah.
This is actually reminding me a little bit of... the conversation that you had with Cyril Blanc, where he was saying that you can treat public property almost as private property in a lot of ways. And yeah, I don't know, like, what I think if like every single person in Hawaii doesn't want this dairy to be built, but some company just goes and does it anyway because there's nothing that's actually stopping them, like, I think that guy is being an asshole. But I don't know like what you do in response to that. Like if you can't convince him just by having a discussion, I don't know.
Are you tired of Bitcoin dice and ready for something different? Try LuckyBit, the original falling coin game, at luckybit. It's the most exciting Bitcoin game on the web. You can bet on 5 different payout lines and win up to 999 times your bet. You can even use their faucet to get some free Bitcoin. Dice is boring. Play different at LuckyBit. Check it out at luckybit. So that's another thing, John, that I kind of wanted to get to was, well, I guess I kind of already mentioned this with the earlier example, but yeah, like the thing about public land versus private land. And because it's funny, too, because Cyril was saying that he thought you could have group-owned land.
Yeah.
But he didn't believe in, well, it's not that he didn't believe in it, but he didn't really support public property. So I guess there might have been more that I wanted to say before I got here, but if so, if I think of anything, I'll just say it later. But let's bring it there then. Because what was the first thing I asked about? Like if somebody trespasses, can you shoot them? So yeah, who owns state land? Or actually, no, even better, I've heard several people saying, I mean, I'm sure I've heard this a long time ago, but I heard it a couple times pretty recently too, where people were saying, look, if you pay property taxes, you don't own your land. You're renting it. They called it a modern form of serfdom, I think. Or feudalism, maybe, not serfdom. I forget. But yeah, I mean, if you're paying property taxes, it seems, and if they're going to take your land if you don't pay your taxes, it seems more like you're paying rent on someone else's land. Do you guys think that kind of makes sense? Where honestly, it's kind of like feudalism, where you have a lord, the government, who is trying to protect you, and you have to pay him for that. He gives you a little bit of land, you pay him for the land and for some kind of protection. I mean, I get there's arguments about whether or not the government actually protects us, but does that kind of seem like what could be going on, where it's just kind of feudalism, where we get some land and overlords? Any thoughts there? I guess what I'm really asking is it their land or is it our land? But also, how do you extend that? What? Oh, yeah. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard that many times before, and I've thought about it. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know exactly where the property tax goes. I guess maybe it's possible that it goes more towards like service things, but then I don't know. Then it just becomes an argument of whatever, like you're forced to have these services and stuff like that. I don't know.
I think for the most part, I think property taxes are intended for public schools. I'm sure it varies a lot from place to place, but that's generally how I've heard it.
Yeah, I mean, I was also like wondering if it was like for trash pickup too.
Okay,
and like,
no, you pay for trash pickup.
I think again,
that's what I'm saying. I don't think it's a separate
place.
Yeah, or whatever, inspections or something like that, which is a whole other thing. That, but yeah, I don't know. I mean, I've thought about this a lot too, and actually, I've thought about this as a contrast in a way to intellectual property, and I think I might have mentioned something to Daniel about this like a long time ago, but I don't know. I would just think about like how Europeans came to the Americas and claimed the land. There were already people living there, but then like how did do the people living there even have a claim to the land? Like, how do you determine how somebody owns land? Because it was just there before them. Like, it was just this piece of ground there. Like, and how does somebody prove that they have the right to it? And like, in a way, I've actually started to think that like, if you're gonna make an argument for privately owned property, it might actually be easier to start with intellectual property, because by coming up with some kind of intellectual property, you don't like you don't take something that was already there and say that like you somehow claim ownership to it. If that makes sense.
So you're saying that with intellectual property, you own, well,
it wasn't there before you thought of it.
So are you saying that once you create intellectual property, you do own it? Is that what you're saying?
I don't know, honestly. But I guess what I'm saying is that it seems like that is more legitimate than claiming a piece of land in some ways.
Right. I've heard arguments like that before. Yeah, like you only own things that you create. So if you develop land or if you farm on it or build on it, then you can kind of own that because you're putting effort into it, kind of like homesteading. And I think that is generally the idea that liberty people have. It's just if you develop it or work on it, then you can have it. But
yeah, I think I've heard Adam Kokesh talk about that before.
Yeah, I think that's true. Now,
I don't know if I like that though, because I don't know. It doesn't. I think it's like better than saying nothing, but I don't think it's like a complete answer.
Yeah, honestly, I'm going to bring up another issue, but I think the root is really this: like, who owns property? That's really what the question boils down to, and I don't know if we have an answer. But the next. Well, actually, it's pretty much the result of most of the stuff we've already talked about. But really, one of the main things that I've been trying to get to is this. Let's say that the government does own the land. I mean, regardless of how they got it, regardless of whether or not it's legitimate, they kind of do just whatever. I mean, it sucks, but they have this land and they've controlled it and run it, whatever. So let's say that was true. I don't know if everyone agrees, and I don't even know if I agree. But if they do own the land, and they're charging us taxes or rent, let's say it was feudalism, and they're supposedly protecting us, and we pay them for land that we get to work and produce stuff on, things like that. First of all, if it was feudalism, and let's even say like old-fashioned feudalism. Let's say that everyone's clad in iron and they're plowing fields and whatever. Is there anything wrong with that? I mean, if you have an overlord who has this land and he gives you some of it and you pay him for it and he provides protection, is there anything wrong with that? Do you guys think?
No, not inherent. I don't think so inherently. But a feudal lord, that kind of implies the system of feudalism. Although now I sound like someone, talking about like some kind of weird nebulous system that goes on during feudalism. But I'll try to explain it. I think feudalism is like that, the action of buying lands off the person. Isn't that called like sharecropping or something it'd be called that in our society, or is that different still?
That was what happened, I think, after slavery ended.
Yeah.
Then it pretty much just continued, but
it's the same
but
thing.
They
the same
kind of
idea,
paid
right?
for it.
As feudalism.
Yeah.
You give like a portion of your crops, and you get to keep some of it because you're renting.
Yeah, I'd say it's pretty similar. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I have no problem with someone renting the means of production, as I guess would make more sense for the discussion. Because I have no problem with, I'm not someone who thinks that, if you're a worker, you somehow gain, just because you're working someplace doesn't mean that you own the means of production or something like that. There's no problem with another guy owning all the machines and then paying you to come in and do them, and then only paying what you guys agree upon. So with the idea of like feudalism, I have no problem with it when it's put into like a contract. And it says, well, you're going to work here and you may live here. Maybe you may or may not provide living spaces for those people. You may or may not provide health care. It's just up to whatever you two agree upon.
Right. The contract is important because with old-fashioned feudalism, I think we could pretty definitively say that if you were born into it, and if you were like not allowed to leave, and if you had to work this land and pay for it every month or whatever and give your crops to the Lord, I think we would agree that would be pretty wrong. But yeah, if there's a contract involved, then it seems like it would be okay, right?
It's because of the system behind enforcing it. One has a feudal lord who will... I mean, actually, I don't know exactly what they did, but I'll make it seem as bad as I can because I'm making the argument the other way. They'd take all your land and rape your wife. And the other one, it's just the guy will take away your ability to make crops off of his land, it's his land. So I don't see any problem with that. And you'd still like to clarify what you mean by saying you can't leave. That means like he will forcibly make you stay there, not... well, if I leave, I won't have any money and I won't have any way to make and I won't be able to feed my children. That's not like that's not actually forcing you.
Yeah.
You've decided to do this. You've gotten yourself into a bad situation. Now, he may be a dick. He may have tricked you into it and that's wrong, but it's not like you're being forced to stay there just because you have to make money because everybody has to do that. And that's not.
I know exactly what you're saying. Yeah. If he's going to physically or violently force you to stay, that would be wrong. But if he's just, I don't know.
It's like, well, you either do this or you're going to die. That's not him.
Yeah. I agree with that.
Yeah, and not die like I'm going to cut your head off and then keep your children as mine and raise them in a fairy tale where gnomes rescue them from having to clean my house every day.
So, I guess then, if we just draw this pretty much a direct analogy to the U.S. I mean, they do own the land. I mean, let's say they do own the land. I mean, if they do, and if they're allowed to shoot us if we're just towing the line, that I guess that's one of the ultimate questions that all this has led to for me is, well, then why can't they set up a government? Why can't they make us pay taxes? If it's their land, and if they're allowed to shoot us if we're just towing the line, what are they doing wrong? I mean, that's the question. And I guess the only solution there is to say, well, it must not be their land, right? Is that the weak link there? Or I don't know. What do you guys think?
Yeah. So here's a question. So one of the things you were talking about is like people being born and like then by extension like they're now under the contract even though they had no choice. I think that's a key part.
Yeah.
But I just thought of this. What is stopping people from leaving the country and having the kids somewhere else so that they're not an American citizen?
Yeah, or even if they are born in the U.S., I mean, you don't have to tell anyone that. Like, you can kind of keep them off the grid, and people have done that before.
Yeah, and then the problem becomes, like, your parents, I guess. Like, you can't blame the government as much as your parents in that situation, I guess. But I don't know. That's a whole other thing. I don't really want to get into talking about family issues or something. But, well, the other thing I was thinking about is, I don't know if this is really related to what you were just talking about, but I was going back to the Reddit thing where I was kind of talking about some of the stuff I'm talking about now a little bit. And like, I think the problem when you start
the Reddit censorship, you mean?
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah. So like the thing that a lot of people were saying is like, well, you don't have to be on Reddit. You can go start your own place and do whatever.
Right.
And like they're right, but at the same time, like Reddit is this established thing, and like we've been using it this way, and we have come to expect all these things from it. And when somebody starts doing stuff that we don't necessarily agree with, like, yeah, like maybe we don't have the right to tell them no, but maybe we should fight for it because, again, going back to what I started with at the very beginning of the episode, like, is that people who believe in liberty are trying to tell everybody that, like, if we have liberty, the world is going to be a better place, all these things are going to work better and stuff like that. Well, is your enemy then, like, I don't know, when you start getting into the hypothetical things, is your enemy still like injustice and like power, or is your enemy just like some hypothetical like situation? I don't know. It's like the Reddit thing is different, I think, than the US because it's happened over a shorter period of time. It's like with the same people. Like we've been on this forum for years and we're the same people, and it's not how it used to be. Like we have the right to fight for how we want it to be because we remember. And it, like you could say, well, they're not being good libertarians or whatever, but if they're actually fighting for like what libertarians are saying is going to be the end result, like is that really a bad thing?
Yeah, actually, I think that analogy really helps. I think because it is pretty much like that. I mean, when people censor on Reddit, you can say, okay, well, it's their servers. If they want to censor whatever, and we'll go build a new Reddit, and that may happen, it may not, whatever. But I agree with you, John. You have every right in the world to just say, this is stupid, stop censoring us, please, I mean, quit doing this. You can argue about that as much as you want. But it is their server, their program, and if they don't change it, they don't change it. They have their rights too. Now, I think that more or less extends to the U.S. I mean, it's like, it's their... again, I mean, there's issues about where the land came from and stuff, but at present times, I mean, there might not be much that you can say other than, well, it's their land and it kind of sucks what they're doing to us, but if that's what they think they should do, that's what they think they should do. Now, we have every right then to argue against that, to tell them that we don't think it'll have good results, to say that we just plain prefer something different. We have all those rights, and we can do that day and night. But in the end, I mean, if they don't change it, they don't change it, right? I mean, I'm wondering, I guess I'm just wondering, I mean, why can't they be idiots if they want to be idiots, right? I mean, I don't know.
They can be.
Yeah.
They can. I guess what I'm saying is like, I don't know. If there comes a point where following like all of your liberty beliefs and like doing everything exactly the way that you're supposed to by the textbook or whatever, if you're going to be a good libertarian or anarchist or whatever, if there comes a point where doing all that like doesn't accomplish the results that you were told it would, do you then just keep doing it? Do you know what I'm saying?
Say it one more time. Maybe another way.
If you follow exactly the non-aggression principle and all these things, and you know the answer to every hypothetical situation, and you do it exactly the right way, and it doesn't produce the results that you were told it would or that you expected that it would, maybe should you reconsider? Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think you should anything that you're going to believe in, and then it just keeps on, like, I I don't want to say you're disappointed in, but something that you are not seeing result from, or something that's, and it's not something like that you could be improving on, then yeah, you should always be reconsidering what you're doing or what you believe in, where you're putting your efforts. Speaking for me, I don't put that much effort into, like, I don't know. I think it's good to have principles to stuff, like the liberty principle, or just not fucking with other people and just leaving other people alone as far as bothering them. But I guess from what John's saying, I'm trying to think of a way to put this.
Yeah, what I'm saying is, what if you follow the non-aggression principle, and all the Reddits get censored, every single subreddit starts getting censored. Your neighbors put up all these windmills, hundreds of windmills to annoy you, and they build that dairy 2 feet away from your yard, and they put up fans to blow all the smell into your yard. What happens when all of that stuff just comes down on you?
Yeah.
Well, what do you mean it comes down on you?
What happens when you follow the non-aggression principle, and then all you have to show for it is that you're miserable and you hate everyone?
Well, that's how everybody is deep down inside. Everyone just covers it with some form of coping. So you're just a person. No.
I would say...
I don't think that you being dissatisfied with the outcomes of your actions, as far as if it's something like just leave people alone, I don't think you can. For one, I don't know how you do then turn around and then go, well, fuck your windmills, take it down, or let me not be censored on Reddit. But I don't think that kind of a situation is one that then warrants you changing your way, the way you do, or the way that you think. Maybe it's a wake up call to make you change how you put out your ideas, how you're viewed by everybody else. Maybe more like a public relations thing. Because I don't think that changing your thinking there is really going to help at that point.
Well, I think you could be right in some cases. If what you believe is actually, if somehow you have the aliens came down and told you whatever, that it was this is it, we're from the future and we know this is it, this is the right thing. At that point, if it doesn't work, maybe then it is the way you're applying it or something. But then there's also the case of well, what about the person who doesn't get along with anybody and they think it's everybody else's fault, but everybody else realizes that it's just this person is being an asshole? Do you understand the analogy I'm making, I guess? I don't know if that was very clear. If everything you do doesn't work right, maybe it is you and not everything else.
Yeah. So, okay. I think that's pretty much, again, like I said at the beginning, that's pretty close to where I wanted to end up. But I'm not sure. Can I get you to say that one more time again?
Yeah. It doesn't sound that different, I guess, from what Tim's saying. But what he was saying is changing more the way that you get out your ideas. But what if it's actually the ideas that are the problem that you have? You have this idea and you're I think this is truth. This is the right thing. And you follow that idea exactly, and everything goes wrong. And there comes a point where saying, well, people just aren't listening to me, or I just need to change the way I'm saying it, or I just need to rethink this. Is there a point where you say, maybe this isn't the idea that I thought it was? Maybe this isn't number one. It's not the right thing.
What's the alternative then?
Tim, that's not an argument. That's not a counter argument.
No, I know it's not a counter argument. I'm just confused. Because you believe in the non-aggression principle or something like that, and just because you know it's there doesn't mean that you have to jump to a different way of thinking when it doesn't work. I think a lot of people put a little bit too much weight, a little bit too much focus on a theory like the non-aggression principle and trying to freak out and like not compartmentalize, like force their life to go along with that, where I feel like the non-aggression or stuff like that is more, it's more just like a useful thing for human interaction. It's supposed to be shared by people, I guess, so that's more of an argument to evangelize for it. But
I think that's exactly what I'm saying. Like, you shouldn't treat it as like
dogma.
What?
Like a dogmatic approach to it?
Yeah, not like definitive.
But not even that. Like, well, yeah, that. But like the other thing is, I think the important thing about it is like the results that it's supposed to produce, and where people start focusing on the means, which would be the non-aggression principle or whatever it is. It's not even just that, it's with everything. But they start focusing on that more than focusing on like what it's actually supposed to produce.
Okay. So I think I like that. I think it's close to where I was trying to get to with all these questions. And I'll just go ahead and kind of say, like, to me, yeah, I mean, maybe it is the same thing. I guess what I wanted to say is, like, you can't, it's not about anarchy must be good just because it's anarchy. It's not about government must be bad just because it's government. Especially since I remember we talked about this with Stephen McCaskill. I think it was episode 11 or 12, a long time ago. But I remember asking him, well, wouldn't you say that the government, that the world already is anarchy, and it started out as anarchy. I mean, I think you would have to say that. I mean, where would the government come from? Just from nature? I don't know. So, or even government is part of anarchy. I think. I mean, because people can do what they want. I think that's not quite true. It depends how you define anarchy, because anarchy means no rulers. So as soon as there's a ruler, then it's not anarchy. But the idea that if you define anarchy as the idea that people can just do whatever they want, then, I mean, because I can, even if I have chains around me, I can still pull on them as much as I want. I mean, I'm still my own person. I still control myself. Even if there's a chain there, okay, that stops me and someone else is stopping me. And yeah, we would say that that's pretty wrong, but I still can do what I want. I can try to anyway.
Yeah, but Daniel, you don't realize that the rule of government is a mental attack on people, and it just makes them feel depressed and everything.
Was that
was like halfway in between sarcasm and like sarcasm on the sarcasm, because yeah, I think a lot of times, especially people who are activists in the liberty thing, are all about how it's just destroying everything and it makes everybody so much worse, and the people who are for it are evil, and the people who are oppressed by it are about ready to shoot themselves because they had to pay taxes. And I don't like. Okay, I agree with what you're saying, is that we're still. It's like the word arguments, because you're still technically free. If you're chained up, you can still move. Your mind isn't held behind something.
I think I might have that might have been a bad example.
Probably.
Let me ask you this.
I'm sorry.
Well, no, I mean
I'm not
my
actually
part.
Sorry.
It's hard to say that you're free when you're still chained up. So that might have been a bad example. But
I don't know. I kind of like that example, to be honest.
I didn't say it was terrible. I just
what I started thinking is like, well, like, if no matter where you're born, I guess, we're going back to the birth thing, like, there's going to be some kind of challenges. So if you're not born in a place that has a government, say you're born out in the middle of the desert, Well, like, you're born in the middle of the desert, and there's nothing around. Like, you're gonna die, or you're gonna have to spend, or maybe not even the desert. Maybe that's not a good example, but like born in some rural part in Africa where there's literally no government, and you have to get up at 5 a.m. and farm until like, I don't know, like 9 o'clock at night every single day, or else you'll die. Like, is that any less slavery than being born in the U.S., even though you have no government?
Yeah, I like that. I like those ideas.
Like, that's going to the thing that you were saying, I guess, that saying that government is always going to be so much worse than being free. Sometimes maybe it isn't. Like, and we've talked about the national parks thing. I don't know if we've talked about it on the show, but I know I've talked about it with Daniel privately about, like, can you not enjoy a national park because it's a government thing, a government-run thing, and it's a symbol of your oppression to go to Yellowstone and see all these rock formations or whatever?
It does really bother me whenever I go around. I see government-funded grizzly bears just shitting everywhere, and that's what they tend to do. They just shit on everything.
Well, I will say they were talking on Free Talk Live last night, and actually there's more from there that I might want to get to, but we're running low on time. I don't know, we'll see. But they were saying last night that the government, and not just theoretically, because people pay taxes and therefore they're renting the land, not even theoretically, the federal government literally owns like 2/3 of the western states or more. Like, it's not even some theoretical thing. They literally, it's their land. And so that's pretty absurd to me. I mean, I think Yellowstone could probably be 1/10 of the size. But I know what you're saying, John, and I like your points. And I want to say, like, well, let me ask this. Because, yeah, I mean, you're talking about a place in Africa or wherever where, let's say, there literally was no government. And I want to ask that. Two questions, and I don't care which one. I'm asking if either one of these could be true. Would you say that there are places where there literally is no government? I mean, honestly, even where I am now, in my basement, I mean, there's pretty close to no government. I mean, yeah, there's people that aren't going to like. I mean, the police might come if I do X, Y, or Z, but I can still do it, right? And okay, and then if you let's say you really did want more space, and let's say you really did want the cops not to come if you did X, Y, or Z. I think there would be places out there where you could get away with just about anything. Or even if you didn't agree with that, you could go back in time, and I want to ask, do you guys think that before there, I mean, it's hard to tell, it's history. I mean, how do you know what the heck was going on in people's heads? But would you say that anarchy existed at some point? Is any of that true, do you guys think? Are there places right now with no government, or has there ever been? To me, I think you'd have to say, yeah. I mean, especially if you accept the fact that even when you're in chains, you're still, in a sense, you're still free. But that's a little extreme, and I want to avoid that. Even the classical liberty, the anarchy people talk about in the liberty space, not the chaos anarchy, the more no rulers kind of anarchy. Do you think that exists somewhere, or has it ever?
Yeah, I don't know. See, like, the thing is, I don't even know if the problem is as much like rulers or government, and not because I don't think those things are bad. I think that's almost like too narrow for me. Like, I think the problem is just power, to be honest.
No. I agree with you.
And I don't think there's ever a place where there's not some kind of power going on. And,
okay.
I mean, power isn't always used badly. And I mean, that's even true, like, if you want to say that national parks are good, then you could say that's true of government even. But I think there's always, the only place where there couldn't be some kind of power, I feel like, is there was only one person in the universe. And
Yeah,
and then
there
even
has to
then
be
you could
power.
say
every single interaction between different people
you could
has
even
like some kind of a power dynamic in it, with one person holding something. It doesn't even have to be negative. It's just someone has the power in most interactions.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
It's definitely. I don't think it is bad.
Yeah.
I think I don't think it exists otherwise. Like, I mean, like when you get a job, a lot of times, I don't. This is kind of weird because a lot of people hate their bosses, but like a lot of times it's good to have a boss because they know more than you, or they'll have been doing it longer than you, and like you need somebody to have power over you, or you don't even know where to start. Somebody has to tell you where to start. A lot of times, like it's not, like I said, it's not, power's not always bad, but I don't think there's any kind of relationship where there isn't some kind of power involved.
I kind of get that, and maybe that nullifies what I was hoping to say. I mean, I'll just tell you what I was hoping to say, and maybe you'll agree or maybe not. I was kind of hoping that one of you would say, yeah, there has been anarchy or no government at some time or at some place. And I mean, even after all you've said, if you're looking at it politically, I mean, you're right, there's always power here and there. But if you're strictly talking about the state, I think there are places where there is no state. And there have been times where there was no state.
Yeah, there's been examples of that, of like not an official state. Yeah, but like the way people
Okay.
work,
Wait, hang on. Let's just go with that. I'll skip anarchy. I'll skip power. I'll just say no state. There's a ton of people that have argued for no state all day, every day. People support that. Now, here's what I would say to that. Well, no, let me back up. The Constitution. You've heard that quote about. I don't remember who it was. I don't remember the exact quote, but it was just something like the Constitution has either allowed our current system or it was powerless to prevent it. Right?
Yeah.
You've heard that?
Yeah, it's Lysander.
Lysander Spooner. Okay. Have you heard that, John?
No, it's not. Is it?
I
think
may
it
have
is.
seen it.
Yeah, it is. I was thinking. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I've always really liked that quote because it's pretty clear, it's pretty straight to the point, and it makes sense. I mean, people support the Constitution nonstop, and yet it's still led to everything we have today. But couldn't you say the same for no state? No state was either powerless. No, it's either allowed our current system or it was powerless to prevent it. Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that, and that's exactly why I say that I don't like the like narrow view of government is bad and everything else is good, and why I don't like the like strict by the textbook approach to like liberty, because I don't like I don't think that fixes the problem. I don't think getting rid of the state will fix the problem.
I think then that this is all the way at the beginning when you talked about morals, John, that might be pretty much where I've been trying to end up. I've said that like 10 times now, but yeah, that's kind of it. I also said this like 5 minutes ago, and then we tangented again. Is that a word? Tangented? Anyway.
Tangentially in a different direction.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. The biggest things that I've kind of been thinking about the past week or so is like, it's really hard to say that no government must be good just because no government. It's really hard to say that government must be bad because no government. And liberty. It's really hard to say that liberty must be good because liberty. What it ultimately comes down to, well, I think there's two things. There's morals and then there's results. That's really all that you can ever base anything on. Is it can either be just this general moral idea that, hey, I think that's bad just because I think that's bad. And even that is hard to ground, but that's
how,
if you're going to make any kind of argument, that seems like it's all it can boil down to. You can't say that, no, you can say whatever you want, but logically it's hard to back, oh, the state is just, it's bad. It's bad because it's the state. That doesn't make sense. What you have to say is, it's bad because they kill people, or it's bad because they invade other countries.
It's bad because it leads to something else.
Yeah, and that's the results part I was going to get to.
Well,
it's bad because...
I think that's the only way you can really do it. You can say, yes, I just morally go against this, and generally people accept that just because everybody does that.
But even results, even if we're talking results, why can you say that one result is better than the other?
Because that's how we make art. Like, nothing's going to have a perfect argument for this. And because it's not just like you can't argue someone normally into believing something, because there's more than just logic in the argument. There's how attached you are to it. There's how you've been brought up with it. There's all that stuff thrown in. There's if you've been like, I don't even with like a results based argument, still people aren't going to give into it because then their moral stuff comes into it. But like any of the arguing in the end is just going to be, I don't know, I think kind of pointless because
it comes down to axioms.
So these past 107 episodes,
yeah, exactly, just like everything,
have
like
all been
not
pointless.
Just like everything that argues over stuff is pretty much pointless because everyone's always going to have a different. I mean, it's not pointless. Now it is pointless because everything's pointless. But not in a negative sense, because it's entertaining. And there's no, actually, it doesn't even have to be entertaining. There's no problem with us just talking about it. Now I'm getting onto something completely different. I had a point somewhere in here. Yeah, I don't know if you had something to go off of that.
Yeah, I mean, this goes
are we back
to like
on the recording?
I mean, I never stopped.
No, I haven't either, but I'm wondering if we're continuing.
I guess.
All right,
yeah,
I don't know.
I mean,
I'll have to cut that somehow, but we'll be good. A little bit of editing there, guys. Everyone listening. I had to edit a little bit there because I don't know what just happened, but here we go.
Yeah, it was a parallel time loop or something. But I think we're not well equipped enough to start having a discussion on what is it? What's
actually
the thing?
Just like I don't know
the word I'm thinking.
I don't know what you're looking for, but it's like the ultimate like philosophical question.
Oh no, epistemology is what I was thinking.
Yeah.
I kept thinking ontology, but I knew that wasn't right, and I couldn't remember the other ones. Epistemology.
Actually, to be completely honest, I agree with you. We're not equipped to do that, and honestly, oh my gosh, I've always just had an issue with philosophy, kind of. I mean, I get that we talk about it all the time, we think about it all the time, but I've always kind of had this disdain for that kind of thing, like epistemology, just because people have argued about it for centuries and centuries, and they've gotten nowhere, nowhere at all. It's been the exact same questions, and people write books like, this must be how things go. But it's just because that's what they say. It's just because that's how they put their argument together. It's not because they get nowhere. That's all I can say is they've talked about the exact same questions, and there've been the exact same disagreements. There've been people who've said this, and there've been people who've said the opposite about all these different issues for centuries and centuries. And so I agree, John. Not only are we ill-equipped, it's just something that really maybe it gets nowhere. I don't know, but
yeah, I mean, I tend to get depressed anytime that I read philosophy, and like it's a depression that usually like lasts for at least a month or so. but at the same time, like maybe masochistically, I love doing it. Like I can't stop thinking about it once I get into it. Right. I don't know if I want to do that right now. But
yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't
Make
say
the sacrifices for the show. John.
I wouldn't say it gets nowhere because I mean, you could say stupidly that it's like the journey is as important as the destination. And I think even just like reading about how people have thought throughout history tells you a lot about like humans. So for that, even just from that perspective, I think it's like reading philosophy is good. But so I don't think that's not within the the boundaries of this show.
So now that we've begun your month-long depression, all you listeners and John, I think we're going to call the show here. And
remember, we talk about new and interesting ideas every single week. You can come back to us for any needs you have to fill after your depression when you can't find anything.
Yeah.
And just listen to a few old shows.
Next week, we'll be back.
We act like we have any idea what we're talking about.
Next week, we'll be back, and we'll probably be talking about, like, Dogecoin or poop or something. So.
Probably. Yeah, so go ahead and binge listen to the past 106 episodes like Jeremy Bennett. And this is 107, and plus there's unnumbered YMB lives and interviews out there. Go ahead and binge listen. Some of them,
probably numbered.
Some of them are depressing philosophy. Some of them are Dogecoin and poop. So you really get everything here.
It's life.
Seriously though, thanks for listening to episode 107 or 107. I don't know what we decided on for that philosophical argument about how we should number. All the music, as always, has been from John Stuart. Thanks, John. And what else do I say? Oh, yeah, check out the website, You, Me, and BTC. Actually, seriously, though, with all these tough questions about property rights and no government and whatever, I mean, all this stuff we've been talking about, leave a comment. Send us tweets. Tell us what you think. Tell us what you think can be answered so we know what to keep discussing. And tell us what you think can't be answered so that we know what to stop arguing about. I don't know. Just anything at all that's on your mind. Send a tweet to @YouMe and BTC. And it'll be great.
Just send us opinions so we can criticize them because we can't make up. Like, it's a lot easier to just criticize someone else's point at trying to say they know what's going on than to try to say what you're doing. You know what's going on. So Daniel does this to me, and I don't know what to say. If you give me something stupid or something that makes sense, I'll still find a way to make it sound stupid. So that'd be great.
Yeah. It's a lot easier to show how opinions are wrong than to come up with a legitimate opinion.
This is true.
All right. We will see you next Thursday, guys. Thanks a lot.
Wait, what about advice?
Ooh.
We can't leave out advice.
This whole podcast has been a bunch of advice.
All right,
let's do it.
Let's do it real quick, guys. Remember, because this is unedited, so minimally edited, so no awkward pauses. No awkward pauses.
Fuck bitches get money.
What'd you say?
Fuck bitches get money.
Okay.
I'm gonna use that one.
No, I don't.
I'm not sitting here for 20 seconds while I try to think of something like legitimate. I'm just gonna. That's my new philosophy for life.
I'm gonna say Tim's philosophy in different words, or his advice in different words. You will never be happy if you continue to search for what happiness consists of. You will never live if you're looking for the meaning of life. So,
is that money. A quote from someone?
Yeah, it's from Camus.
Get money, get paid.
Yeah.
Is that what you were going to say?
No, I wasn't. I was saying it's basically exactly what Tim was saying. Well, it's not exactly what Tim was saying. It's more of like the question to Tim's answer.
Yeah, mine fits in with his encapsulates mine.
All right, so let's see. What will I say? I guess I'll say pretty much what I ended up at there is the philosophy thing. Like, and that's also what you said, John. Like, you're never going to live if you keep searching for the whatever the meaning of life or whatever. So, I mean, that's the best I can come up with is people. People have argued for ages and ages, and I mean, if you enjoy it, whatever, keep arguing. But to me, it's tough. It's a tough thing to think about, and it's depressing sometimes, like John said. So I don't know, but that's not quite advice. But final thought of the day, maybe philosophy is depressing. There we go. Or it can be. It can be. Anyway, that's it, guys. 107. We will see you next Thursday. Thanks again. Peace.
Bye-bye.